I actually started dancing when I was 3 years old, but
Wow.
I really became serious about dance when I got into high school. And so as part of this program, it allowed me to leave school around 10:30, and I would train and rehearse and choreograph, for the remainder of the day a little bit. Um, Almost every day, Monday through Thursday, and all day Saturday, I was just dancing. I was at the studio, and I just loved it so much. So I went on and pursued my bachelor's degree in dance at the University of Akron. And while I was there, I was part of a dance crew. Now, this was when like America's Best Dance Crew was cool on MTV, if you remember that.
Yes.
And so we like formed this group. It was led by twin boys, Brian and Scott Nicholson. And so we would spend our days on campus, training and doing our courses. And then we would spend the evenings. We rented this tiny college house off campus, and we would go down into a basement. We had these wall mirrors taped up across the cinder block walls of the basement. Those wall mirrors you can buy at like Target or something.
Yes.
We taped those up, and we would rehearse and choreograph and train, and all night long we would just constantly be working on telling a story through movement. And that was the choreography part of it. And we loved it. And there was probably 12 to 15 of us, but we'd be jammed in this basement while our peers may have been out, at frat parties or things like that's what we were doing, was just dancing. And it was an amazing experience. And the twins who were like the artistic directors of the group, they were incredibly visionary, and they were always about creating an experience for the audience or telling a story through movement that really elicited some sort of connection and emotion with the audience. So it wasn't solely about entertainment, which was always fascinating to me. But came time for graduation, and there's two paths you can take. You could go pursue your master's degree in dance, which is a safer route, right? Or you could go and go to New York City and try and become a professional dancer and wait tables and audition and really try and make it. And I took the safer route. I went off to Temple University in Philly to get my master's, and then the twins went off to New York City. And today they are the creative directors for Ariana Grande's show.
Wow.
And so their whole vision of being this professional dancer and their relentless goal and dream of making it, and their passion of telling a story through movement lives on through the work they're doing with Ariana Grande and building her brand and telling her story through movement and through the whole backdrop and scenery and everything. Like, that is their job. So super cool. So it's like, okay, so they went on to be the creative directors of Ariana Grande, and I land in marketing somehow, but I'll bridge that gap. My final semester of grad school, though, I tore my MCL. I sustained a number of blood clots. I had to come home and finish my grad program from home. Fortunately, Zach and I were together. We had been together for a couple years at that point. So we were getting married that summer. So I decided to stay in the area. I got back into dance, back into the performing arts. And 5 years later, I blew my knee out again. Ooh. And at that time, and I know injuries too.
Yes.
But at that time, it was like, I remember just feeling so devastated, because here my whole career had been dance. And while I was in Philly, I got to perform professionally while I was pursuing the master's degree. And it was so much fun. You could get on a mega bus. You'd be in New York City in, a few minutes, it felt like. So it was just a really cool experience. And so when that all ended, I was devastated by that, but I started looking for jobs on Indeed, and I knew I needed to fulfill that creative side of me, right? Without the physical demands of dance. And so I remember I'm sitting on my couch, I'm in a cast from my hip to my ankle, and I'm crying as I'm looking for jobs. And I find a marketing coordinator position at the local insurance agency up the street. And so I said, well, whatever, let's apply. So I applied. I send in my application. It's filled with dance. There's no marketing background at all. And the story, I guess, on their end was, they had interviewed a couple marketers, and then finally Patrick said to the chief operating officer, he's like, oh, just bring in the dancer. What the heck? We might as well interview her. So I went in, and, I remember doing research. I'm like, how am I going to get passionate about insurance and risk management. And like, here I grew up in this arts background, this performing arts background, nonprofits, you're constantly advocating for something, right? And so I'm like, well, you learn to treat every interview as an audition. Or every audition is like an opportunity or an at bat when in the dance world. And so interviewing was the same thing. Is like, okay, let's just use it as a practice round almost. And I was looking online. All their stuff was outdated. It felt archaic. It was very much insurance-y, right?
Yeah.
And I go in though, and as you mentioned about the culture, I felt that same experience when I walked in the door. I felt that same thing. And so just this overwhelmingly warm welcome of the people, and then sitting down with Patrick O'Neill and having a conversation with him. I think we broke every interview rule in the book at that point. I think we talked about family, we talked about kids, we talked about religion, like everything came up. It felt right though. It felt like authentic. It felt real to have conversations like that where we were just getting to know each other to see if this was a fit. And so in that moment though, I had thought about what their digital presence looked like at that time compared to like what the experience was when you go in there. And I was like, wow, like this story was not being told, this story of like this culture and these people and this amazing purpose that they have to protecting people was not being told in the marketplace if people were going online to look for them. And so they did offer me the job, and I realized, I could be the one to tell that story. Even though I wasn't through dance and movement and things that I was comfortable with, it's like, okay, how can I apply it from a marketing standpoint and really tell the story? And so I took on the challenge. I always say the agency became my studio. The people at O'Neill Insurance became my dancers, even though sometimes I made them dance. And then I was back to being the choreographer. I was back to kind of morphing and telling that story just in a different way. And so that was the venture from dance into marketing. And I feel like I'm way much more in my element from a marketing standpoint than I was in dance. So it was a blessing in disguise.